Mark, off camera, we were talking about you're moving out to Santa Barbara, UCSB from the East Coast, and you didn't know anyone. So you have a bachelor's in film studies and then a master's in motion picture and
Producing.
Producing?
Yep.
Okay, great. What did those degrees prepare you for? And in the long run, now looking back on it, what classes do you think were missing from the curriculum?
Well, so Santa Barbara was much more critical studies, not so much production. When I had applied out here, I was transferring as a junior, so there was no time for me to sort of work my way into the film program. I either had to get into the film program or bust. And I didn't get into UCLA at all. And USC I got into, but I didn't get into the film program. And so Santa Barbara, at the time, it was the only one that accepted me. And I was a little bit iffy on going to Santa Barbara. I had never been there, and I was like, oh, they're too far from LA. Oh, it's film studies and not production. And my dad stops me. He's like, you'll like it. And I go, I don't know. You'll like it. He just stopped me. He's like, you'll like it. Trust me. So I just jumped on a plane a week before school started and just flew out to Santa Barbara. I never visited the campus. I was like, wow. Okay. And when I got there, man, I was like, wow, did I hit the honeypot? It was something. Just kind of going through the campus on that first day. And so, I think a lot of the classes there, it gave me a very good background in terms of, the film classics and what in those films generated such a response from audiences. What was it, in terms of how they spoke to that generation and what themes were in there, and just really kind of studying the anatomy of the film. There was also some production, but a lot of it was really just studies. So, it was a different type of education than I expected, but maybe was the platform that I kind of needed before I jumped into to working in the film industry, getting that sort of understanding about classic films and who made them and why they made them and how they affected people. But I don't know if when I was taking the classes, if there was any necessary class that I thought wasn't, that was missing from the curriculum. I mean, we had a lot of, there was a porn class, which I didn't take.
Oh.
They actually taught a porn class.
Directing
porn
or
film.
Starring?
Just analyzing porn films.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
just
right, wow.
again, because it was studies.
Wow.
There was on Chinese cinema. I mean, you wanted to learn about 1950s Swedish cinema. I mean, there was classes on just about everything. And there were certain mandatory ones, that you had to take. The 101 series was films on, the first section was films on the silent era, then on sort of the era from the advent of sound up through the Paramount decree, when they sort of integrated the all the studios were vertically integrated. They controlled the theaters, the distribution, and the production. So up until sort of when the government got involved and said, no, you can't actually have movie screens as well. You can't own exhibition, distribution, and production. And then the last section was up from there up to modern day cinema. So we even watched The Matrix in film studies and analyzed that. And I think it just gave me a platform and an understanding of, film content and storytelling that, laid a nice platform before I got involved in the actual production. So that was Santa Barbara. And then UCLA was definitely, in terms of a producing program, a lot more oriented toward the business of filmmaking. So, I had what I liked about UCLA. I'm not a huge fan of academics. I'm not a huge fan of people that just teach and haven't done in 20 years. I like to learn from the people who are doing it now. And so UCLA's professors were all people that were working at the time. So my marketing professor was Terry Press, who was the head of all of DreamWorks marketing. I mean, her boss was Steven Spielberg. She was the top of marketing, and she came and taught a class for 3 hours every Wednesday night or whatever it was. So learning marketing from her, it's you're learning from the best. Or Eric Baum, who was the senior VP of business affairs at Sony, was my contracts and negotiations professor. He was doing it at the time, and he'd come teach the class at night. So
cool.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I would say probably my two biggest mentors there were Meg LaFoe, who was Jodie Foster's producing partner at the time, and she just a genius at script development, just an absolute genius. And then Merle Schreibman, who taught me production, and I produced a few actual projects within UCLA. And so I would say, they were probably my two biggest mentors. I'd say in terms of, classes that might have been missing, there was no, new media hadn't really, become a thing yet, even though it was sort of in the nascent stages. So, because this was 01 to 03. So it's like it would be pre-YouTube. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I was creating CD-ROM media packages for artists and stuff. So there was a nascent new media sphere. And there wasn't a lot. I think it was really maybe almost too early, but there wasn't a lot in the producer's program for that. It was mostly traditional film and television. But I didn't feel like, man, I wish they had, more of this or that or the other there. I felt like I got out of it what I wanted to get out of it.
And on the weekends or days off, were you taking the train down to LA while you were in Santa Barbara?
I had a car.
Oh, you had a car?
I did. Mm-hmm. And I was interning so like I said, I came into Santa Barbara my junior year. So I was there for 2 years, junior, senior. So during my senior year, I interned at Film Roman, where they do The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. But I interned for the feature film department, which I don't even think is around. I don't know if they're around anymore. I don't think they are. But they're around for a small time. They did a movie called My First Mister with Christine Lottie.
Right.
And they were in development on a number of other things. So I did intern for them, and it was a good experience. I mean, I started doing coverage, so learning how to do coverage and just, understanding what they were looking for in a script. That was my first sort of practical hands-on experience in Los Angeles. And it was a good one. It was good.
So it prepared you, because Santa Barbara is a beautiful, amazing place, and I would love to live there now.
Yeah.
But it is a bubble of happiness and sunshine and things. And so to come back to Hollywood and struggle for a parking spot and finding a place to live that's safe, it can be a little. I was just wondering what that culture shock was like a little bit. So
because I had made a very good friend when I first moved to Santa Barbara. I think everything happens for a reason. You meet the people you need to meet at the right times. And so this guy, Doug, that I had met within the first few weeks of going to Santa Barbara, this guy was like Mr. California. I mean, knew everything. He had moved out here from West Virginia and just loved it. If you said anything even halfway sideways against California, he'd go off. He'd be like, what are you talking about, man? This is the best. Santa Barbara alone has 1,500, species of plant that are indigenous only to Santa Barbara. What are you talking about? And this guy would convince me to cut class and go play volleyball with him, go mountain hiking with him. I mean, this guy loved everything about the state, loved being outdoors.
Nice.
And so he took me to LA a few times. Like we would go take road trips and go down to Los Angeles. And he just knew everything, not just about Santa Barbara, but the whole, southern seaboard, it seemed like. And so between that and the internship, I'd come down to LA enough, events, with some other friends, and just even some class trips. I remember we took one from Santa Barbara and went to CBS Television City to watch a show being taped and then talk to the producers. So I'd come down enough that I kind of felt comfortable enough with it, and it didn't seem as much of a culture shock when I moved down here. The culture shock was Philadelphia to Santa Barbara. That was the culture shock. It was so different.
I bet, yeah, from hoagies to
submarine sandwiches or whatever. Yeah, no,
right.
Yeah, it was a big difference in terms of, I think for like 2 weeks, all I did was stare at palm trees and license plates, because it's just California and like the palm tree. And I was just like, wow, I'm here, because California license plates and palm trees are two things you don't see in Philadelphia. I mean, I just think I was just so enamored with, just for the first few weeks, just being, I was like, wow, I'm actually here. So by the time I went to LA, it was more just kind of just a lateral move. It's like, okay, now that's where I need to live. But I had visited LA many, many times before I even moved to Santa Barbara. So I'd been on vacation and I'd been to Los Angeles. So it wasn't a huge shock.